Welcome back to my channel, and today is a wonderful day. Liverpool played Burnley, and we played our first home game. This is the first game after the coronavirus stuff, and so the stadium was packed, and there was a great amount of noise, a great amount of celebration. The fans were on fire today, and Liverpool players, they simply delivered. So, as we go through the breakdown, let me just start off by saying that Burnley players are tall, they're strong, they're athletic, and this is how Sean Dyche has always operated. He always only goes for these kind of players. So there's no surprise that the team that came today also is very similar. You can't hate the man because basically he's kept Burnley in the Premier League for such a long time. And this is one of the reasons, you have to work with what you have, you have to work with what resources you were given. He's done a brilliant job at it. Now, the game started and Liverpool played a 4-2-3-1. Burnley played a 4-4-2, a strict 4-4-2, as opposed to Norwich's 4-4-2 from last game, which was more fluid. This was more strict, this was more constricted, but it was very effective, especially in the beginning of the game. Um, they really piled on the pressure, and I think this is a common theme in all of Liverpool's games. The first 20 minutes, any team that dominates usually sees a small dip in energy. And we saw this, we always see this with Liverpool, where they dominate the first 20 minutes and then after that, it kind of goes out. And what happened last season was Man City never did that. See, Man City would just keep passing the ball. They wouldn't do much until 30 minutes, but they would keep attacking. They just won't go hard on. And I think the idea is to weather the first storm. So if you are playing Burnley, for example, you weather the first storm, which is the first 20 minutes, and then when the dust settles and Burnley can't do the same thing again and again and again, that's when you take them by the throat. And I feel like Liverpool are not doing that, but they're kind of doing a version of it. Man City lasted the whole season. Last season they played in the finals of the Champions League. They played 38 games in the Premier League. I think they won the Carling Cup. They went to the finals of the FA Cup, I think. So Man City lasted a lot of games, and I think that is one of the reasons. It's just that they just weather the first storm, don't press high. I mean, they do press a little bit, but they just don't put pressure. I mean, if they can score a goal, if they see the opportunity, they're going to take it, but otherwise not. Now take a look at this formation. Liverpool played a 4-2-3-1, and I think the midfield was a very, very, very interesting mix of Elliott, Naby Keita, and Henderson. And Elliott had his first game today. Mane, Jota, and Mo Salah. This is the same as the previous game. Burnley tried to do the same thing as Aston Villa did last season, right? Crowd up this area of the pitch, push all your players here, and I think we're going to keep seeing this throughout all of these games coming up. Everybody's going to follow the Aston Villa pattern. They're going to load up on one side, most probably on the right hand side, and we're going to see crosses coming in all the way here. And basically not just crosses, passes also um, to this man trying to move in here, this man trying to move in here, and this man trying to move in here. So although Burnley played a 4-4-2, when they attacked, they really attacked, and you got to give credit for that because look at that, that's 3-4-3, and you have to give credit for a team that attacks, especially a team like Burnley that attacks. So I was very impressed with the way they did this part, and they kept doing this the first few minutes. I felt like we were pegged back a lot, but eventually we tried to stabilize the possession. We like the previous game, we struggled a little bit in defending the wide areas, which is not much of a surprise. But you always got the feeling that Naby Keita, for example, and Mane weren't partnering well enough to cover the space. And so when the players from Burnley attacked this position, it was clear that this was not going to work. But anyways, it didn't work out for Burnley, I would say. And I think um, it makes sense. It's not the greatest tactic, especially when you can't do it consistently. And when Liverpool aren't falling for it again. Now, one of the big issues I have with Liverpool, and this has been ever since Jurgen Klopp took to the game, has been here in Liverpool, is the way we man mark when the goal kick happens, right? So let's say, for example, this is how it is. This is just a rough diagram. Most of these players um, will be in the half line, right? So let's say this is the half line. Ball is supposed to come from here, and the aim is to get it into this area, right? Either with either one of these players getting the ball. Now the idea I think is kind of simple. Is you push these two people in so that they are out there pressing the ball. Unfortunately, what happens is because of the way we play, when the ball comes in, this player seems to drag one defender here, right? And this is unfortunately not a good thing because this leaves this whole space empty. And you'll see the same on the right hand side. Imagine Joel Matip moving forward and VVD coming here. Then you will have this position vacant, and usually this player is here. And so if this player is able to head the ball into this player's direction, then all of a sudden you have an attack and these players start coming in, and this kind of stuff happens a lot in Liverpool's games. Um, and so this is something I noticed today, because in the Norwich game it wasn't there, but today it was there, and this is not good because as you can see, look at how discoordinated this is, right? Everybody's here. Trent Alexander-Arnold and VVD are the only players here, right? And so what happens is that when these players start attacking in this direction, the spaces are left open, and Trent Alexander-Arnold even naturally isn't a very good defender. He does do a little good. He does do a decent job, but not the greatest guy. So he gets overrun, and you want to avoid this, right? In future games, um, obviously it doesn't hurt against the smaller teams because usually our defenders are just an equal match for these guys. But um, against the bigger teams, against the more stronger ones, we will struggle, and it will not be fun when we struggle like that. So this is one of the things I noticed that we always do this. We've been doing this since Klopp came to Liverpool, but and this has been the reason for some of our losses in previous years. You know, I don't think we're going to change this anytime soon. So this is basically how they operated, especially in the first 10 minutes. Burnley were really out there. They really tried to get the ball as quick as possible to this direction. And what's interesting is they allowed this player to go in. So what happens is that because of the way we press, all these players start moving this direction. Elliot has to move here. Trent Alexander-Arnold has to move here because otherwise all of this space becomes, unoccupied, and who's going to look after that? It is Trent Alexander-Arnold's job to, take care of this position. So you saw this happening a lot, and what that meant was that this player got a free run of this, yeah. And usually what he did was he came to this, tried to pull Trent Alexander-Arnold on this side, and as the ball was coming in either one of these three directions, you saw this player trying to run in between, this player tried to run in between Costas VVD, this player trying to run in between VVD and Joel Matip, this player trying to run in between TAA and Joel Matip. And so Liverpool's defense was very much overworked during this period, and you can see that Liverpool were getting outnumbered, and that's not a good sign. You cannot be outnumbered in the in the attacking defending areas of the pitch because that is fatal. What I would say is that Burnley did a few things wrong. One is they couldn't keep the ball, and another thing is when you commit so much to attack, you do run the risk of getting into counterattacks. And if you can see what is happening here, is that this whole area of the pitch is opening up. Now, of course, this area is also open, yes, but this whole area of the pitch is open. And why this is important is because look at how many players are there. One, two, three, four, five, six players against one, right? Now, granted, this player is going to come here, he's going to come here, he's going to come here, but when is he going to come there, right? Because let's say, for example, there is an attack happening, and VVD and Joel and Trent Alexander are much closer to goal. We get the ball, right? We get the ball, and let's say VVD has the ball. Look at all the space. It's empty. This space is empty. So basically, what VVD has to do, he is under pressure from all these players, but he has to find a way to give it to either here or give a long ball here. Now, the long ball is not possible because he's under extreme pressure. So the long ball is a little bit of a pipe dream. If he can thread the ball through here into this region, either one of Naby Keita or Henderson can pick up the ball, and then they can start the attack. And this will be the theme of the game. This is exactly how the game was played from beginning to end with a few variations. What's interesting is that during the first 20 to 30 minutes, we didn't really clear the ball that well. Of course, in the 20th minute, we turned it around. We started gaining confidence. We started gaining some stability. And what you saw was Liverpool did actually start turning it around. We did start clearing the ball. But unfortunately, what happened was sometimes when you're clearing the ball, you're just giving a long ball. You're putting one forward. You don't really care where it goes. And for some reason, our clearances were really poor. I mean, what would happen was the ball will come here and then Naby Keita loses it. The ball would be thrown here and then it reaches this player. And then the ball is thrown here. Immediately these players are coming in and they're pressing and it's difficult. And so what you saw was that Burnley actually played a very good first 20 minutes. They pressured, they kept pressing, they didn't let go, they really attacked, they truly, truly attacked. Um, but they didn't get any reward for it. You can attack, but you cannot say that, oh, I totally need to score a goal. I mean, I deserve to score a goal. You can't say that. You have to score the goal. You have to make the thing happen. You just can't say, oh, I deserve it. So Burnley, in that aspect, they probably paid for it. They committed a lot, but they couldn't deliver. And that's on Burnley. That's not on Liverpool. It's not Liverpool's job to score. Burnley didn't. And so Liverpool were able to make the most of it. Now, I would say in terms of defense, we are much better with Fabinho, which means we missed him during this game. You always felt like the Burnley players were able to make the passes in this area and in this area throughout the game quite comfortably without much of a problem. And that's not nice, right? But once after the 20th minute, we started clearing the ball well, basically making correct passes and all of that. There are two reasons for that. One was because you could see that Burnley weren't pressing as strong as they did during the first 20 minutes. During the first 20 minutes, they just didn't allow us to live, and it made it very hard for us to do anything. But during the second 20 minutes, you felt like after the 20 minutes was done, you felt like we had a lot of spaces. Burnley, once they finished the attack, they didn't regroup as quickly as possible. They were dysfunctional, and you saw Liverpool get a lot of place in this area, right? A lot of place, and that basically meant that we could now attack, and we did several times, which is very good, right? So, in the end of the day, the whole point is how can you take your opportunities? How do you create the situation where the opportunities are created? And I felt like Liverpool did a good job at making sure those opportunities came about. Now, one of the good things about the first 20 minutes was that we also got a few opportunities. And I guess this is where we start talking about Elliot because we will talk about him a lot during this game. What a game he had! Such a wonderful, wonderful uh, work he did in midfield, and congrats to him for taking the opportunity. Young players, they can that's all they can do. Very reminiscent of Curtis Jones taking his opportunities last season. The interesting thing about this game, as opposed to the Norwich game, is that when Burnley defended, right, they tried to form a bus, basically. They tried to give absolutely no space whatsoever. They kept the shape very, very tight, didn't give any space. But I think what Liverpool did well was they didn't get phased by it. And I think we need to give Klopp a lot of credit for the way he chose the midfield lineup. It's unconventional, unexpected, inexperienced, and completely new. I mean, it's basically new. And what you saw was that if this was the D, basically, if this was the D, right, you saw Elliot and Naby Keita roaming in these areas, right? Costa Simicas was a little more back. Jordan Henderson totally taking dominance in the center, and I think he played very well in trying to push the ball forward. And you can see Elliot actually tried to make a lot of things happen in this area during the first 15 to 20 minutes. And basically, what he would do was he wouldn't necessarily attack, right? He wouldn't necessarily come and go in a straight line, take the ball here, take the ball there, pass it to Trent Alexander or pass it there. He would try to make something, and what that meant was he would carry the ball a little, right? Try and drag Mo Salah here, try to drag Henderson here, try to drag TAA into the game, and then create some passing opportunities. And this actually kind of reminds me of Xherdan Shaqiri because this is akin to what he does. And then try to release a few passes. If he gets the opportunity, he will go into the box, and he did this one or two times, and he was making some neat little plays during the first half even. Now, of course, after the 20 minutes was done, it felt like a little bit of his thing was not there, but overall, during the first 25 minutes of the game, he did very well. I think Liverpool were suffering in attack in that they were able to attack, but they didn't really attack. They were just passing the ball around. And they did create some good opportunities, or they found some good opportunities, but you always felt like something was missing here and there. One of the good things that happened was that, similar to Elliot, who took a very wide position on the left hand side, Naby Keita also took a very wide position. Sorry, Elliot on the right hand side, Naby Keita on the left hand side. You saw him take a lot of wide positions, and for some reason, Burnley just decided to stick inside the box. What that meant was Costa Simicas got a lot of space, and basically Jota got the first goal this way, right? And I mean, it is what it is, right? If you decide to set up a bus inside your box, be ready to get the ball coming into the area. And basically Burnley were just completely caught napping for Jota. He made a good run, in front of the defender, and basically what you saw was that we got the first goal in the 18th minute, and I think that released a lot of tension from us. Now Burnley didn't stop attacking, but it did release a lot of tension. Now after that, after that goal, and after the 20-25 minute mark, Burnley couldn't really keep up anymore, because what was happening was during the first few minutes of the game, the Liverpool defenders, like I said earlier, were not really clearing the ball well, right? And so what happened was Burnley could stay really high up. They were right in the center of the pitch. All of these players were all of these players were in the center of the pitch. Uh, but after a certain point, you felt that Burnley couldn't do much, and Liverpool were just taking the game by its force, and they were really creating a lot of chances, um, passing the ball well, basically moving the ball in the right areas. This is very surprising for Liverpool because Liverpool's midfielders are not very good at pushing the ball forward. But this was very refreshing because you felt that this three actually did a good job in terms of moving the ball into attack. And so every time you got the ball, either from TAA or VVD or Joe Matip or Costas Tsimikas or Naby Keita, you always felt like the ball was going into these wide positions. From these wide positions, good opportunities would lead up in here. And the reason why it would lead up in here was because Burnley were here in attack and they would be caught napping. And so Burnley's players kind of exposed their defenders um, to bad positions, and you get what you call a hole in football, right? The midfield hole where this area in front of the last line of defense for Burnley, they were constantly pounded um, because this area of the pitch was just completely open, and Liverpool were not only able to start attacks, but Henderson himself was in great form, so his passing was really good. He really pushed the players forward, really got Trent Alexander-Arnold involved. Elliott was phenomenal, actually, in my opinion, in creating the opportunities or creating the openings. Before you create an opportunity, you have to create the opening. And once you create the opening, you can create the opportunity. From the opportunity, you take the opportunity. Elliott was very instrumental in creating those small opportunities. And um, I think this whole movement of Burnley attacking, pressing very high, leaving a lot of spaces, us moving in these directions, really gave a good game for the neutral viewer, if you might say so, because it was a great attacking game from both sides. Um, One of the simple tactics that Liverpool used when they were attacking, because they did use a small little tactic, is the ball would first come to Henderson, Naby Keita, or Trent Alexander-Arnold, or Costas Tsimikas, right? And they would be in these positions, and Elliott would be here, and it's almost like a 4-2-3-1, and just ignore these grey balls for a second. The ball would come to these positions, or it would come here to TAA, and then it would move here, right? It would move into these spaces, and from here, the attackers will bring the players into the ball. So in the first motion, what happens is the ball would come to this region, right? By the time this motion is completed, Elliott and Naby Keita would find themselves here, right? Mane will be here. The ball will find itself in the center, right? And Henderson himself is also pushed up. And once the ball finds itself in the center, Elliott goes a little outside. From here, Henderson either gives the ball here or here or here. Now, usually what happened was in this game, Mo Salah and Jota were able to be very high up, which meant that Elliott saw a little bit of the ball, and so Trent Alexander-Arnold got a lot of opportunities, and you could see that when Burnley defended, they were very deep, and so Liverpool got a lot of joy in some of these areas. And so from here, what would happen is the ball would either come to the center and then go into the deep attack with Jota receiving the ball or Mo Salah receiving the ball, either from Keita or Henderson or whoever. And from there, you would get one or two opportunities. The ball will be pushed outside, so Naby Keita will be pushed a little bit here. Elliott would be pushed a little here, and then from here, Trent Alexander-Arnold will find himself all the way here. And I'm really sorry. It's kind of messy, but this is usually what happened. And from here, Trent Alexander would give a brilliant cross or something like that. Elliott would come and give a brilliant cross or something like that. Maybe Keita didn't cross much, but he did his work in this area. So you saw a pattern where Liverpool would be just passing. So I can remember the images in my brain, but this is how it usually ends up. right? So sorry, not Mane will be here, and what would happen is, so I'm just going to leave the position like this. The ball will start in this area. It will either move here or move here. Mostly it moved in this direction. From here, it would again move here, right? And from there, either this would go in this direction or it would go in this direction. So again, same either here from here or here, right? And then sometimes you would find the ball go from here right back to there to return to the center. And in returning to the center, you would find some spaces in the center. Sometimes in going here, you would be able to find some spaces here in this direction. Now Kostas Tsimikas didn't really open himself up on the left hand side, and I think that's okay. But this is the gist of what would happen, you know, to show you a small trajectory. This is how the ball would move. Right? Sometimes it will move from here to here, basically like this, or from here to here. And so what you notice from this is that very suspiciously, Burnley, for example, they allowed some of the passes to go through, right? So you always felt that Liverpool's passing was not cut out by Burnley. Meaning, when you're trying to cut out a pass, you're either trying to cut out the passer or you're trying to cut out the recipient of the pass, or you're trying to cut out the space so that the pass never happens in the first place, right? You psychologically make sure your opponent never thinks in that way. And this is the only way you can beat Thiago Alcantara. But even then, Thiago Alcantara finds a way, which is why he's special. And players like him, Ozil and David Silva, all these guys, they're able to find spaces you cannot find, and they just turn up. And the reason is because they're calculating in their mind how the player is moving, not just for your side, but for the other side. How are you going to put the ball? What direction is it going to go? From which direction is the person going to receive the ball, the right foot or the left foot? How much spin you should give on the ball? How much speed you should give on the ball? How much acceleration you should give on the ball? All these decisions, how much height should be given on the ball, the elevation, all these things, they just run on these players' head, and then they make their decision. So if you notice players like David Silva, not Ozil to a lesser extent, but David Silva and Thiago Alcantara, and players very similar to that, Xavi, for example, so they don't actually make the ball do what they want when they are in possession or when they're trying to hit the ball, right? They change the form of their body in order to get the right pass. And you'll see this a lot. Sometimes players like Thiago Alcantara, Xavi, and all these people, when they have made a pass, they might lose their balance a little bit. And that's because they're changing the form of their body in order to make the pass a certain way. And that usually comes from a lot of calculation that happens in your head. And I think that's very interesting. In this case here, we didn't have any of those players, right? And we were still able to find a lot of space. And I think the reason is because Burnley were too close. But what they didn't realize was that it's not just about being close, stopping the ball from going to goal, staying back and forming a bus. It's also about covering the spaces, not allowing your attackers any of the space in front of the D. This is not right. You're not supposed to allow these spaces. And Burnley, I think, they did a bad job with this, right? I didn't expect them to do this, but they did it, and they paid for it, basically. Because throughout the game, you could see that they had their attacks, but when they were attacked, you could see that Liverpool were really dangerous, really probing, asking them too many questions they couldn't even give any answers to. So this is basically the summary of the first half. When Burnley attacked, they got into very good positions. They would they would give crosses, either from this direction, or they would give short cross balls. They would go into the wide areas, and push the ball into the wide areas, creating the extra man. So Burnley actually did very well in attack. In defending, very suspicious, very suspicious, and that's unlike Burnley. Liverpool, I felt like were okay in defense. I think the issue for Liverpool with these three midfielders is that the defensive contribution is very suspicious. You don't really know what's going to happen, right? But in terms of attack, this midfield was really good. They found a lot of spaces. They used up a lot of their energy in passing the ball rather than holding it, carrying it forward, pushing it backwards. You could see Henderson make a lot of good passes, a lot of wide range passes. I usually give a lot of heat to Henderson because he's passing back, he's slowing down play, but today he was really purposeful, very urgent. His moves forward were very good. His long range passing was excellent, pushing Arnold and Elliott and Naby Keita. I felt like the left hand side, Naby Keita and Costa Simicas, they didn't really, get into any flow or any attacking juice. Um, and even in defense, you felt like there were some inhibitions. Um, but it is what it is. I guess you can't expect more than that from Keita, Costas at this point. Hopefully they will improve because you saw the attack happening in this direction. It was getting created here. The attack was getting created here. The opportunities were coming in this position, but you saw the you know the attacks getting created in those areas, and Klopp will have to deal with that in the coming games. Our next game is Chelsea, and it's very important. He deals with it. So the second half was very similar, right? First 5 minutes of the game, Liverpool couldn't clear the ball. Liverpool couldn't get the ball outside of their half, or even if they did, it was just one player dragging the ball all the way, and it was kind of I don't know what to say. It was unconvincing. It was unconvincing. We got out, but it's just one player. It's just a unicorn ball that went in, and that's not good. So the first 5 minutes we struggled, and Burnley got really close, and then after that 5 minutes was over, oh, now Burnley forgot that they were on a football pitch that's 100 meters long and 40 meters wide, I guess. They forgot because what they did after that is just not forgivable. They simply opened up the midfield, and Liverpool did exactly the same thing. They would push the ball into midfield, push it outside, bring it back in, and then open up into these positions. And what's interesting is that it's not easy to do. Right? Only the good teams are able to make these opportunities come about. And you could see from minute 55 that Liverpool basically bombarded Burnley, gave them absolutely nothing. Simply kept attacking. One of the unique features of those attacks was Liverpool were attacking very much on the right hand side. This really became the highlight of the game, in my opinion. Just dominant. We were just dominant on those areas. Elliot, Trent Alexander-Arnold, and Mo Salah really combining very well to create such good opportunities, right? They were excellent opportunities. What you would have is that Burnley would be attacking as per their usual stuff, pushing their men up, trying to get in, and what happened was that the attack would fade out, and then boom, we'd have the ball come in this direction from wherever, and Elliot would stretch the ball here, and then he would pass it to Mo Salah. And Elliot deserves a lot of credit for really making very good inroads for Mo Salah and the other players to actually come into the attack and form it. We've been missing this in our attack, in our midfield for a very long time. We finally have someone who will do it very proactively, very effectively. And I guess his loan at Blackburn has really helped him because That was some incredible stuff he did, right? We simply dominated these positions. The ball would come here, Elliot would just spray the ball, and then he would join the attack, right? So by the time Mo Salah and Jota and all these players they go here, and then the ball would come to Elliot or Kieta or Henderson or whoever it is, and by this time Trent Alexander-Arnold has already made his journey here, right? From here we would get the ball, and Elliot maybe in this position he's not that good, but in the wide areas, just in this area, he was just brilliant, just connecting play, joining the dots basically. Now I agree that Burnley, for example, really opened themselves up with the way they attacked and didn't really form into their positions. But hey, we did very, very well. It was incredible stuff. Um, I have to say this because Liverpool haven't won the midfield battle against any team in a long time. You have to go back to the Premier League title-winning season because last season also I don't think there was any game I can remember where we just dominated the midfield. Against Crystal Palace we did a little bit. Otherwise we are very good in midfield, but dominating. This is the first game in such a long time, and it was great to watch. Our 2-1 score really belied the actual way the game was played because Burnley really didn't have much going forward. They did have a few dangerous moments, especially sometimes when they were able to get the crosses. You know, you always felt like, what if someone gets their head to it, right? There's always that doubt of, do they have a good enough attack with their crosses? And Liverpool did a very good job of clearing it. VVD did an excellent job, um, and it was a great second half because Liverpool totally killed it. And I think what happened was we had Firmino come in for Jota at some point, Joe Gomez for Costa Simicas in the last few minutes, and Thiago Alcantara replaced Naby Keita. And I think this was a very important moment. In the 80th minute, Naby Keita comes off, and probably his first ovation. This is the first time he's getting a clap from the Anfield crowd. So the Anfield crowd was very pleased with the way Liverpool played today. Naby Keita was part of it, and he made some very good contributions. I would say overall it was still not great, it's not enough, but he did enough. Thiago Alcantara came and basically we started doing what Elliot was doing, but on the left hand side, and it's crazy. Um, I don't know what to say, right? All of a sudden, in the beginning of the season, I was saying the field is not very light, and maybe this is a false flag. I don't know, but this is very exciting stuff because exploiting space is a difficult task. Only the best players and the most creative players do it. Usually, the creative players, you'll find them in the top teams. Now, we've been a top team for a long time, but in terms of creativity, and I guess this was a breath of fresh air, we completely bossed the midfield. I was really, really impressed, I have to say. But like I said, the defending leaves so much to be desired because we still struggle to defend in the wide areas. It's the same complaint from the Norwich game. Our defending in the wide areas is just not good enough. It's when you're going to face teams like Chelsea who have got a huge wide presence, with Marcos Alonso, Cesare Azpilicueta, and then you've got, Christian Pulisic, Hakim Ziyech, and all these players. It's going to be hard. It's going to be really hard if this is how we're going to defend, right? And like I said at the beginning of the season, if we truly want to be a top team, an unbeatable team, we have to start beating the big boys, which we haven't done effectively. We didn't do in the last season at all. And in the title winning season also, we really struggled in that aspect. We didn't beat all of the big boys. But even if we did, we didn't really convincingly beat them. We just etched it out. So next week is going to be a real hard game. And again, in the 94th minute, you had Allison saving a clean sheet for us, basically going one on one. with the Burnley defender and basically saving the clean sheet, which I keep telling this, but this guy has saved at least 10 points a season, every season, except last season. He saved more than just 10 points. He saved a lot of things for us. He's already saved 2 goals for us in the dying minutes of the game. We've already won. And that's going to be a huge boost to our goal difference, right? I think it's just nice that Alisson is on fire because that's 2 big saves in 2 games. So let's look at who our man of the match is. Jota scored the first goal. Mane scored the second goal. Mane also was very much involved in, when I drew this diagram of Mane was very much involved. Mane is always involved. It goes without saying. And I think that second goal Mane scored was brilliant. I mean, Trent Alexander-Arnold is just showing what a good player he is when it comes to passing. Just basically making sure the ball reaches the target. Brilliant goal. I mean, it's crazy good. I also felt that in the 26th minute we scored a goal. It was ruled for offside from Salah. Again, a perfect example of what we were doing. Basically passing to the wide areas, bringing it to the center, and basically stretching Burnley so much that we just exposed them, right? It's not necessary to do that. It's overkill. But it was essential from Liverpool's perspective because we have to bring all our players into the attack. And that was the only way to do it. And we did it. And it worked brilliantly. So in 26 minutes, we scored another goal with just a brilliant passing move. It was a shame that it was not a goal, but what a passing move that was. Who's my man of the match? I think the whole team. Again, this was a team performance. I think Trent Alexander-Arnold and TAA are very much in the mix-up for getting the. I think shout out to Virgil van Dijk. He also played very well in defense. I'm leaning towards TAA and Elliott. Now, Kostas Tsimikas, of course, got an assist. TAA got an assist. Mane and Jota scored a goal each. So actually, before the video started, I wanted to give it to Elliott, right? Looking back, Trent Alexander-Arnold did get an assist. He did play very well in attack. His defending was okay. I mean, it's what you expect from him. And I felt like Elliott was also very good in defending in that particular area. Not great, but he was just enough, right? I'm very conflicted between these two. And the only reason is because Trent Alexander-Arnold got an assist. Otherwise, Elliott is getting the man of the match all day, any day. So then the question is, would our attacks been successful in the second half? Our continuous attack successful with Elliott or without Elliott, with Trent Alexander and without Trent Alexander? I think what Trent Alexander-Arnold brought to the game was the late passing option. So he'd be back here and the players would be here. Sorry. And he would make the late attacking plunge and he'd give the final ball. But the job of creation was already done, right? These forward 3 men were already creating the opportunities, and Elliott would help knit the first zone. These 3 players would, just move the ball a little bit, attack. It's a good question. Henderson also did that. So without Henderson and Elliott, actually, there wouldn't be attacks. Without the attacking players, those attacks wouldn't be coherent. The attacking players had an easy game today. I think the good question is, if Kostas Tsimikas played the same way Trent Alexander-Arnold did, would Naby Keita have pushed Kostas Tsimikas to the edge like Elliott did? I guess the answer is yes, right? So what Costa Simicas is willing to go down the line. He even last game dribbled past a few players to create an attack. So Simicas is a very adventurous player. Navigator kind of pushed him back or held him back, so to speak. Without Elliot, there is no Trent Alexander-Arnold's attack. I guess the man of the match for me is Harvey Elliott because without Elliott, there is no Trent Alexander-Arnold attacks. Without Elliott and Henderson even, there is no ball going forward. You know, the reason why I'm not giving Henderson is because I felt like the defense was poor, and Elliott was also okay, not great, but I did see him do a much better job than the others in midfield. It's not that it was enough, but it was much better than everybody else in midfield. Thanks a lot for watching.